Hello, you guys. Welcome back to Kind of Hot, Kind of Healthy. If you are a newer listener here and you are here because of our fabulous guest, Lacy, we are going to get into her in about 20 minutes or so. If you're new here, we like to riff, we like to catch up before we bring our guest on because if you're a loyal listener, you know we love to chit chat. We love to get the hot goss. But then we're also going to dive into somatics. We're going to dive into Lacy's story, and we're super excited about that. Before we do that, we want to introduce ourselves. Maddie, why don't you go first since I have now been talking for a minute?
Oh, I wasn't mentally preparing for that, but thank you.
You are very welcome.
I'm Maddie. I'm a woman's health and fitness coach. I help women go from doing HIIT workouts, go from going into the gym and being stuck in the cardio section. You're already working out. We're going. Sorry, there's a dog. It's a little rambunctious right next to me.
Check it out on
Um,
YouTube.
yeah, if you're not on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. This is Odin. If you see him, he's really liking the ear scratches I'm giving him. But I help women go from doing disorganized workouts to workouts that get them lean and strong. That's what I focus on. So you can actually get toned and see the fat loss you want and build muscle without feeling like you have to slave away at the cardio for the rest of your life.
Mm.
And that is what I do. Allie, what do you
I
do?
love that. I help women who have been into health and fitness before, and then that one thing happened that threw them the fuck off, right? Whether they went through a breakup, a huge life change, they were diagnosed with agoraphobia. Shout out to myself, right? And you find yourself gaining weight, you're not exactly sure how to get back into fitness, you're feeling overwhelmed. And we work together to create a really simplified plan because you need something simple to follow. You don't need to be doom scrolling on TikTok trying to find workouts. We need to find something that makes sense for you. And that is how I lost close to 30 pounds after being diagnosed with agoraphobia because I stopped trying to do what pre agoraphobia Allie was used to doing, and which was easy for myself at the time. But it doesn't work for this version of me. And so that is what I love to do. And that is a little sneak peek of us. If you guys want to go to either of our profiles, we're going to put them below. Also, follow the pod account. If you're new here and you want to see more videos of what we've done, pod account. We have a YouTube, Kind of Hot, Kind of Healthy podcast. We have Instagram, Kind of Hot, Kind of Healthy pod. We have TikTok. Go to the places. And if you are a die-hard fan and you haven't done that, go and do that. We'll put everything in the show notes so you can be lazy and you can just scroll down. But do that. Okay, you guys, that is your top of the show reminder.
Yep. To
So
who we
before,
are.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say before we get into the interview, do you want to talk about why we wanted Lacy on?
Yeah.
Because some of you are here from Lacy's world, which welcome. And then for those of you that have been listening, you will get a very good idea when we talk about this, why Lacy would make sense for our podcast.
Yeah, so somatic therapy is something that I have been practicing for over almost a year and a quarter, maybe. And I would say it was a big piece to my own healing from getting misdiagnosed with an autoimmune disease and just going through issues that I was having internally. And somatic therapy was like, I'm not going to say the missing link, but it was a big link for things that I was going through.
Mm-hmm.
And Lacy has an extensive career, a long career, 10 plus years as a personal trainer, as a health coach. And she found somatic therapy. She's also the practitioner that I work with. And she found it, and it had helped her heal from her own autoimmune diseases that she had multiple of them. Um, and this is something that I'm very, very passionate about because I know the effect it had on my life and my body, my health, everything. And I think it's something that is getting more views, getting more it's getting
Notoriety?
yes, getting more notoriety. Good word. Getting more notoriety.
Notoriety. Notoriety.
Notoriety. There we
There
go.
you go.
As you know, just like everything becomes kind of popular over time, different
Yeah.
things like mouth taping and then keto, whatever. But within the health space, it's becoming more notable because of the power it has to really make you understand. And I think in a world where we love to dissociate and love to be not experience what our body's experiencing, emotions, whatever it is, this is forcing us to get back into that. And I think that it's just too powerful to not talk about. And we talk about
Mm-hmm.
all things health and not just like eating more protein, right? That's going to help. Yeah, right. But
Yeah.
it's the stuff that not enough people know about yet, understand yet. I mean, every time I try to explain somatic therapy, I'm not the best at it. And this is why we're having Lacy on to talk about that.
Yeah. It's so important because one, a lot of people, if they're not in like therapy, they've never been in therapy, they have no idea what disassociating is. Like they are doing it and they really have no idea. They're just like, that's what I do, right? When you're
Mhm.
doom scrolling on TikTok or when you're just staring at the TV or you're just stuck in bed and you're just like, I can't move. Like these things happen to you on a regular basis. And if you're not focused on your mental health, if you haven't started there, you might not know. And then somatics just takes it a step further. And I know I have not personally done, dived into somatic therapy. That's something that I have talked about like personally with my therapist because I have agoraphobia, like I said. And a lot of what we do is exposure work, right? It's making myself trust me and getting more confident in situations. Like when I was diagnosed at the end of 2019, I did not I was living with my parents at the time, thank God, and I owned my own business or I would have been fired. I would no longer have income. Like I could not leave the house for like 6 weeks. And when I did, it was like going, like I would walk around my parents' backyard or I would walk down to the end of the road, but I would start to feel panicked when my back was not facing the house. So like I have had an incredibly uh insane journey. And I don't like to necessarily talk about it a lot because like it does feel triggering, but a lot of the work that I do is exposure work. And my next sort of move is like continuing with my exposure work, but also when I feel like I can commit, I want to work into somatics because it is about like coming back into your body. And Lacy has done like little exercises with us inside like programs and whatever that we have done, but it just to me is so interesting, and I selfishly wanted her on so that I could like learn more and like get it direct from the source and understand it from somebody that I trust, because I met Lacy in 2019 in a different container and she was an assistant coach, and so I've seen her journey and like come into the person that she is today, and I'm just like, that shit is cool. Like what you're doing really works. And so I'm again selfishly excited to have her on. Shout out to Armin if you're on YouTube. He's in the background. My baby boy. So I'm really, really excited. And the fact that you have worked with her in this capacity is also really cool to just see your own progression, like genuinely from when we first started like doing the podcast or Instagram lives. That's where we started out, you guys. And we low key hated it because we're like, this is like weird. Like we're on Instagram live and like, yes, we're talking and it's great and it's fun. And we had a key, but also I was like, Maddie, do a podcast with me because I need to yap with you more. Like, I love her brain. And just seeing you from our Instagram live days to the person that you are now is a complete 180. And that
Really?
has 100%. Like, your energy is better. You are happier. You're lighter. Like, genuinely, you know how to connect to yourself more. And I just notice a difference. And like, not that the other version of you was bad, you just seem
Mhm.
more you. Like, this feels
Mm.
authentically you. And I think that's amazing. I think it's amazing.
That's cool. I mean, you've said that before, but like sometimes I just don't let it like penetrate the brain, or I'm just like, oh, you're just saying that because you know what I
I
mean? Just
no,
because.
here's the thing. I do not gas people up for the hell of it. I if I am not jiving with someone or I'm finding them irritating, and people can find me irritating, probably a lot of people do, but I degas, right? Don't tell me. Like, I'm not going to go up to somebody and be like, you're fucking irritating, but I'm not going to gas
Mhm.
them up. Like, when I say it, I
Mhm.
truly mean it because I'm a words of affirmation girly. And so I love to show people in that way because genuinely, like, I want to make sure that you know that because it's so validating to be like, yeah, I have done a lot of work. And then you can reflect and you're like, you know what? I am fucking awesome. And I have made
Mhm.
a lot of incredible changes and I've done a lot of work on myself. And like, we should be having our friends gas us up in a really authentic way.
I agree with that, and I appreciate that. I accept it. Thank
I
you.
am accepting it.
Literally, I'm like, I'm accepting it. Because that's, I feel like I have struggled with relationships in the past where it's very much like either the most important relationships in my life, it's like it was never enough where I
Hmm.
say, "Oh, I did this," and then they find error in what I did. I think from their position of they want it to be as good as possible.
Mm,
But when you're looking for um like affirmation, you're looking for appreciation when you can't get it from yourself, you're then always
hmm.
let down because the person you're trying to get it from is working from their perspective of they want you to do better, so they
Yep.
don't just give you that affirmation, that like I struggle giving myself. So I think sometimes for me it's like a little bit hard to accept positive
Hmm.
reinforcement when I'm like waiting for the pin to drop of like,
Hmm.
okay, what needs fixed or what needs to be done
Hmm.
better. Or it's the other spectrum where some relationships where it's always like everything's a joke. So like I can't tell like what is actually real and like what is not. So
Yep.
when I do hear something that's positive, I'm like, but you're just joking. So that's like
Right.
they're like my two battles. This dog guy. These two battles I've struggled with when it comes to like receiving positive reinforcement. I'm like, is it a joke? Is it bad? What's
Mm.
the bad part?
What is the bad part? Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with and I don't like say it because I feel like it is kind of like buzzwordy to be like my childhood trauma and healing my inner child. But like genuinely, most of you listening to this have some aspect of childhood
Mhm,
trauma because
mhm,
it just is literally in your DNA, right? From your
mhm,
parents, your grandparents, great great grandparents, etc. But also like I try and remember this sometimes, like it is our parents' first time living,
mhm,
right? And they're not going to make all the best choices. As when I
mhm,
become a mom, I'm not gonna always make the right choice, right? But we're trying our best, we're learning. And so that part of your like childhood trauma, like part of you is still wounded, and we get to
mhm,
work on that. Like what the work that we're doing, like our parents couldn't even comprehend the things that
mhm,
we're doing. And so it of course it makes sense that sometimes you're like you have a hard time accepting it or you're like is this real? Like or is there an ulterior motive? Like are you saying this to
mhm,
like butter me up? So I totally get that. Sometimes I get really hard on myself because I'm like it wasn't enough. Like I haven't done enough. And like I am not the older sibling, but I have older sibling energy in everybody's eyes. And so I'm always like, I
mhm,
haven't done enough. I haven't done enough. I haven't done enough. It's not good
mhm.
enough. And then I have to like remind myself, I'm like, bitch, you are good. And I'm actually, my next tattoo is a bumblebee because I love bees. And then I was going to see if they could just do it in because they'll already have the needle out. Like I don't get color. I just like black and white or just black ink.
Mm,
So I was gonna
mhm.
see if he would also I want it on my wrist like good enough because I'm always
Oh,
reminding
I
myself
like
like
that.
it is good enough. Like everything is good enough. What you are doing, sometimes you don't have to fucking be great. Like you can be good enough in this moment and you can continue to work on it, but
Mhm,
sometimes it is just good enough. Um
mhm.
and so I was actually just talking with my sister about that. I was like, yeah, I got a schedule with him because I'm like dying. Like I'm dying for a change and I just chopped my hair. So I'm like, can't cut my hair again.
Wait, let me go check. I heard a dog make a noise. I want to make sure
Okay,
everyone's
let me
okay.
pause. Yeah, so I I think also like it's winter time, so like that's when I often get my like tattoos because like it's you're out of the sun and like it's also just kind of like a fun thing to do, like just something new. Um and ideally I would like to have like half of my arm done before my wedding, but I don't think just like financially that's like necessarily a smart decision. So I'm like, all right, I'll get
Mm.
one, like I'll just get another one and then I can focus like after the wedding because a lot of money. So I'm like, where am I putting my money? And
That's a good point. I think
honestly,
one
whatever.
whatever at this point. Eventually I want to get a tattoo, but I just like don't know what the heck it would be. I don't know where. One of these days. I don't know when, but one day we'll
Yeah.
get there.
I like I'm not the type of person that like takes it too seriously either. And like
Mhm.
like my sister is definitely not like all of hers are like she like does have memories with them, but she has like a boba tattoo and like a motorbike and just like
That's
funny
cute.
little things that like she
Yeah.
likes. And I appreciate that because I don't know, like I just don't take it that seriously. And people are like, it's permanent. And I'm like, "Oh, okay, whatever." Like somebody once told me, and then she slid into my DMs, like because I was talking about it on Instagram. And she's like, "You're not
Mhm.
gonna like that when you're like 80 years old." And I'm like, bitch, I'm gonna be 80 years
Oh,
old. Like, first of all, did I ask for your opinion? No.
yeah.
Second of all, I don't care if I'm like 80 years old and I'm like alive, like that's great. You know what I mean? Like I don't
I'm
think my
alive.
concern is going to be like, "Oh my God, I wish I didn't have these tattoos." Like I'm definitely not going to give a fuck. Like what? And like also like some people get a lot of piercings. Like this person does have a lot of ear piercings. But like I don't really like wearing jewelry. Like I wear my like engagement ring. That's really it. So I'm just like, ugh, like mind your P's and Q's. Okay. Like
Yeah.
just I cannot stand people like that. I'm like, I say I wear my engagement ring. I'm not even wearing it. I always try and put it on in the morning, but I think it's like a sensory thing sometimes.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, I hate how people like have to like my number one thing I really try not to do is like yuck people's yum. Like
Correct.
I'm not gonna be like, you're like, oh, I'm getting a new tattoo. Wow, I can't speak English today. Like, oh, I'm getting a new tattoo, Maddie. I'm not gonna be like, ugh. Like
Oh,
when you're 80, are you gonna want that? Like, no, that's like not what goes through my head to like say to people like when they say
right.
something they're excited about. I
Right.
hate people do that.
And like it's funny because like my mom hates tattoos. She like that's like her big like thing. And my
Mhm.
dad, he has like one or two, but they're like pretty fucking ugly. But like, you know, shout out King. But my dad is always like, whenever we're like around him, he's always like, I forbade that. And he's like always joking. And I'm just like, oh my God, you're such a boomer. Like your jokes are not funny.
Well, he is like
No,
1,800
he
years
is a
old.
boomer. No, he's 68. So like he 100% is a boomer. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, like, okay, boomer. And he's like, hey. And I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, no, he like is king of the dad jokes. And so like it always makes me laugh because like there are definitely people that like will do what their parents want them to do, even as like an adult, right?
Mhm.
Um, but it was always
Can't
fun.
relate.
Yeah, I can't relate because like, it was always funny. Like me and my sister would just come home with like dyed hair, or we would just like obviously like as we were 18 and older, like either piercings or tattoos or whatever. And it's like some people they're like, oh my God, I could never it would not break my parents' heart. And I'm like, okay, can't relate.
Yeah, like I literally cannot relate to that at all.
Like,
Like,
not to like sound like a douche, but I kind of told my parents what I was going to be doing. Like as long as
yeah.
me and my sister, it was always like as long as our grades were good, we could kind of do whatever the fuck we wanted. And my parents were none the wiser. Like we were always lying about where we were, always doing like things like, and they were none the wiser. And like we'll talk about that sometimes. Like I think during COVID, um, we would like sit out by like in my parents' backyard and we would like be by the fire and like we're just having some wine and we'd be like, wait, you guys want to hear something crazy? And they're like, okay. And we're like, in high school, we would do this, and they're like, wait, really? And we'd be like, well, yes.
Duh, that's what we
Well,
did.
yes. Oh my God, it was so funny.
Uh,
Oh my God, I can't. Sometimes. Ugh, I love a good memory lane thing when
I
it's not
love being
traumatic.
nostalgic. But there's a hint of trauma with each one, I would have to say.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah.
Even the fun ones,
Little
hint of
sprinkle,
trauma.
sprinkle. Yeah. Oh my God. What would
Uh,
you say was your most rebellious thing as like a teen or like a preteen or whatever?
oh, I tried so hard to like have friends and let's
Oh,
be time conscious here. I know, is that
yeah.
sad?
As
Lacey
soon
should
as
be
she pops into the waiting room, I will let you know.
okay. I feel like I really struggled with having friends because I moved schools in
Oh, yep.
in the eighth grade. So like you kind of form your like your stable friends. So then it was
Yes.
like I was always like reaching for friends. And then I was also the first one because I'm older for my grade to get a car or have a license, be
License.
able to drive. So like I was constantly like allowing myself to be put in positions where people would need me for a car, basically a ride. And then I'm like the DD for everything. So I would say that's just like the crux of like where a lot of the issues
Oh,
came from. Cause like I wanted friends, but like a lot of them I think just used me like because I could drive.
oh, that's
Yeah,
terrible. That
I know.
actually like is
So
that's really sad.
I know. But you could look at it in a positive way. Like I was the reason none of my friends ever died.
I mean, shout out to the DDs.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I definitely was always the wasted
Mhm.
one. So like always like, but like that was just like the cutesy thing, like us girls and our water bottles and like just like being fabulous in like the middle of the woods. Like we were always
Mm-mm.
dressing super cute. And it's like, bitch, you're going in the middle of the woods. Like what? What's the fit for? Why did we spend like time getting
The
ready?
fit is for death.
Taking like little pictures. I'm like, bitch, what? We're gonna, if we have to pee, we're peeing in the woods. Like, why are we trying to be cute about it? Why are we trying to be demure? Like, we're just, what is going on here? But,
No.
and I remember one time, me and like three of my girlfriends, we went out, we all came home back to my mom and dad's. And we were all in my bed and my door was closed, but like we were all like pretty loud because like we were drunk and just like not aware of like our volume. And my mom was like, she was downstairs. And she's like, Holly, be quiet. It is like 2 a.m. And I was like, sorry, mom. And I was like, girls, we have to be quiet. Like, I just, and we're all just like giggling. And I was just like, oh my God.
Uh,
Like, honestly, that is girlhood. I love being a girl and just like being silly and
mhm.
just cutesy. I love it. I love girlhood.
I do too. It comes at a price,
It comes a
but
100%. I mean, like, not the terrible parts of it, but just like the
yeah.
zoom. Do you just see butter in the background?
Yeah.
Zoom. When he gets the zoomies, it is adorable. But yeah, no, not the bad parts of girlhood, but like just
Mhm.
having friends and being able to just like have a key and gossip and just like cheer each other on. And I just love it. I love
What's
it.
that like now?
Well, potting is like that's where we have our moments. But like when we are like in IRL, because if you guys are new, like Maddie and I have never met in person, which is like kind of weird. Like it makes me feel weird about life. Like I get uncomfortable. I'm like, this is like a little weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. My dad even said that the other day
He's like,
because
who's this internet person?
like I said like, "Oh, Allie said this," or something like that, and then he was like, "You haven't met her in real life yet, have you?" I was like, "No." I'm like, "Hopefully the first time won't be her wedding. I'm planning to come down in April."
I
So we
am
do.
gagged. I'm gagged. Oh,
So we will be potting together in April.
so excited.
But yeah, it is funny. Like we text each other probably every single day of our lives. We pod together at least once a week. We have phone calls outside of potting at least once a week.
Yeah, it's like very weird, but it's also fantastic. Like the parents are, back in the day are the dangers of the internet. And it's like, well, this is where I meet my friends. Like, what are you talking about?
Literally, literally. I
All right,
agree.
you guys, we are gonna wrap it up and then we're gonna get into the interview. Make sure that you are subscribed, you're liking, you give us a 5-star review, share it with your friends, because if you want more of this, We need you to do all of that, right? Friends helping
Mhm.
friends here. So hope you
Mhm.
enjoyed the interview.
Welcome, Lacey. We were already started talking and we're like, we gotta save it for the pod. So Lacey, if you can introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about who you are, we'll dive into everything after, but when you're
I
ready.
mean, I don't know which alter ego y'all want me to inhabit today. Um,
Give us spicy, Lacey.
okay. Um, so my name is Lacy Shay Healey. A little known fact, like legally on paper, I'm not Lacy Shay Healey, and I never will be. I am Lacy Landry. And in
Mm.
fact, a lot of people in my personal life still refer to me as Lacy Landry, and that's my name. I never counted myself as a feminist, but like, and it didn't even really, it wasn't started like, hey, I'm not going to change my last name because of that. There were other reasons, but um, I'm Lacy Shay Healey, but I'm Lacy Shay Landry, and yeah, I am a mom of two special needs little girls that we adopted. Uh, I'm a functional health coach. I've been in the health coaching space. I've been coaching. Uh, I'm going into my 15th year.
Wow.
15 years coaching. So over a third of my life, I have been coaching. And I'm a business mentor, consultant, strategist, somatic practitioner in training, 2/3 done, whatever hat you want me to put on, depending on the day.
Today we're here for somatic hat, Lacey.
Okay, we can do that. We can do that. I mean, it's the hat I probably put on. I don't say I put it on the least. It's like the least that social media sees, I guess. Like my clients behind the
Mhm.
scenes see it all the time, but social media doesn't see it that often. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So before we get into that, tell you're going to the Eras tour for the fourth time. Where are you going?
So I live in like outside of Houston. So we're driving to New Orleans on Sunday morning, and I'm driving back on Monday morning. We're going to leave like early. And so we're going Sunday night. This is my fourth time seeing the Eras tour. I saw the Reputation tour back in 2019, but I was running like 102-degree fever. I had bought the tickets the day they came, day they went on sale for the Reputation tour. I bought the tickets. The friend of mine that was supposed to go with me bailed the week of. I had not been in Houston for very long. I didn't have any friends in Houston. So I went with this girl that I'm really not friends with. And I was also sick. And so I drove the hour and a half to the NRG Stadium sick to go watch this concert. I didn't even make it all the way through. We had epic seats. And so when she didn't tour again after that.
Mhm.
So I went to see the Eras tour in April of 2023. It was like her third or fourth stop. So it was the very beginning of the tour. I went with my best friend Stephanie, and it was incredible. It was so good. And then my client Hannah asked me about a year ago, she asked me, "Do you want to go to Eras tour in Germany?" And I was like, "No, I don't think I'm going to be doing that." And then like it came to June and the concert was in July, and she's like, "Are you sure you don't want to go to the Eras tour in Germany?" And I was like, "No, I think I'll do that." And I bought the tickets and we ended up with floor seats. We didn't have any idea. We walk into this German amphitheater and we think that we're like floor, like far back. No, we were like floor, like she was less than 10 yards from me. I
I would
lost
die.
my shit. Like I was like, "Woo!" Like I couldn't even, I was like hyperventilating. I have video. I was like, I couldn't even speak. She was like walking out, she was right there, like she could look over and see us. And it was weird. The European shows, the floor, they didn't sell it so packed, like so it was not crowded. And so we went that night, and then we were drinking the following day, and she was playing again. And I looked at tickets, and there were like a set of four tickets, and altogether it would have been like it was like $2,000. And I was like, in the United States, one ticket is $2,000. So if I'm gonna
Whoa.
do this, I may as well buy the four tickets for all of us to go tonight. They were high up. It was completely different point of view. And so I bought them. And ask me how I put that on my business strategy. I did. I put it on my business.
I figured you were going to.
I did. I put them on my business. And so I took these girls, we went to see the Eras Tours, completely different experience. And I'd been on the hunt for handicap accessible tickets for my little girl that's in a wheelchair. And they were like $12,000.
Oh,
And I
Wow.
was like, I love Taylor Swift, but I'm not paying $12,000 for seats for a
uh-huh.
show. And my cousins went last weekend in Miami, and they had gone to like her second stop in Dallas at the beginning of the tour. So all of my cousins went to Miami, and I didn't go because I didn't go with them the first time. They basically like they left me. So my cousins were sending me all of these pictures last week. One of my cousins went to two shows. And when they were flying home in the group chat, they were like, Lacy, there are tickets that have opened up in New Orleans on the Sunday show. And I looked, and there were tickets handicap accessible and actually a pretty good spot for right at $1,000. And I was like, and I had it on my thing. I messaged my bookkeeper. I was like, can you tell me where, like, I was like, I need to make an informed decision. Um, and because contrary to popular belief, I don't just spend money. I'm like very intentional with like big purchases,
Mm.
even at the level that like I'm at. There's a lot of like thought that goes behind it. And so I like looked at everything, looked to make sure we could get a hotel where we could walk, where I wouldn't have to worry about putting a wheelchair in an Uber.
Mm.
Difficult. So I had to make
Oh,
sure
yeah.
that there's all these variables that I have to think about that most people don't have to think about. So I had made sure that there was a hotel that had handicap accessible rooms that was within walking distance, and I found all of that. And so I bought the tickets, and I walked in and told my 11-and-a-half-year-old that we were going. I was like, hey, Leanna, next Sunday we're going to go see Taylor Swift. And she's like, what? I was like, we're going to go see the Eras Tour. And she's like, how? 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 And I was like, I just got us tickets. She's like, in my chair? I was like, yes, in your chair. And
Oh.
she was like, she just started like
Oh.
this. And she just lost her mind. She's like, I don't have anything to wear. I was like, we'll order on Amazon. So,
I gagged.
um,
She's like, what am I wearing?
so I taught Leanna when we brought Leanna home in 2019, she spoke no English at all. So I was parenting a child that spoke a completely different dialect.
Mm.
And at the time, I was commuting May Lee 3 hours a day to school. So 45 minutes there, 45 minutes back, 45 minutes there, 45 minutes back. And Leanna had to go with me. My husband was traveling. We adopted Leanna, and like 4 weeks later, he started traveling again. So it was just me and the girls every single day in 2019. And we were in the car, and Lover had just come out, and I was playing it on repeat. And so Leanna was like, her first like English sentence was like, you need to calm down. You're being too
Oh.
loud. And so I've tried to tell Taylor Swift's team so many times, like, hey, like she needs that hat that you give at the concert because like she learned the English language by singing your songs. Um, and she has like we went to see the Eras Tour movie. She has it on her iPad saved and downloaded. She watches it like twice a week. Like she watches. And like when I was there in Germany, she was like, Mama, I will see her one day. I know it. I just know it. I will see her.
Oh.
And so like how can you not like when it's like right there, I was like, no, like this is core memory stuff. This is the thing that she will
Mhm.
remember for the rest of her life. This will
Oh
be
my
the
God.
moment in childhood.
Mhm.
Um, because we go to Disney and do all of that all the time. She doesn't even really like Disney. She's like, that's her sister's thing. Like she
Yeah.
likes it, but like for a different reason. So like this is her jam. And so she was like telling all of her little friends, and she actually prayed at school. Like she goes to a little Christian
Mm.
private school, and she had to do the prayers in front of the class, and she asked for protection over travel while we go to see Taylor Swift.
It sounds
Oh
like she
God.
manifested this whole experience.
I mean, she's really wanted to go, and like she knows it's like the end of the tour. They're in the last little bit of it. Who knows when she's going to tour again?
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
I personally don't think she's going to tour for a while. She's 35 and that girl probably wants to have babies. And
Mhm.
she's like I don't think I think it's going to be a while. And so I don't know. So yeah, we're driving and I'm driving 5.5 hours on Sunday morning. That's why I'm getting my sleep score up. I'm
Mm.
driving 5.5 hours on Sunday morning, going to the Eras tour, and then waking up at 6 a.m. to drive back home because I need to work on Monday.
That is some icon mom shit. Like that
Wow.
that is everything. I love that.
I try to be an icon mom. That is
Yeah.
not perfect at
No,
all.
you definitely are though. I mean, you are walking in the steps of it every time
Yeah.
you tell us something about your
I am
girls.
obsessed with that. That is everything. That was like me for Beyonce. All the time. I was like, I like gagged, couldn't breathe. And I'm, oh my God, I love that. I love that. She's gonna remember that forever.
Mhm.
And that just makes my heart like I could cry. I love it. I'm such a simp. So I am obsessed with that. Um, yeah. Maddie's like doesn't even like Taylor Swift, so she doesn't even appreciate this.
I
I
think, Maddie,
know.
the most recent album, if you would buy it and put it in your ears,
Mm.
just in your life stage right now, if you would buy it and put it in your ears, you would come to me in 3 days and be like, these words have changed my life. It is actually what you need to listen to.
Okay,
I
I
have
will
said
put
that, like when we're recording, and I'm like, when Taylor says this, and I can do it with a broken heart, this and this, and Maddie's like, okay, all right,
No,
maybe you need
you
to
need
keep
to
telling
listen.
her it.
You need to listen to like Smallest Man Who Ever Lived, like
Oh,
on like repeat. Like I saw a reel this morning. My cousins posted it. They were like, I literally flew 1,200 miles to hear her sing this song, and it's like Smallest Man Who Ever Lived, like marching down the stage. It's like yes, like all of us. That's like everybody. Like that song changed me on a visceral level. I remember I literally stayed up when that album came out in April. I was at Disney. I had taken my youngest and the album came out and I was like, oh, cool. Nobody is going to be around. Maylee doesn't talk. So I was like, she's not going to care that I'm going to play the same song over and over and over again. So I like memorize the words. This is the perfect weekend. So yeah,
oh,
I have been a Swiftie. It was like 18 years yesterday since she put out her first album.
yeah,
And
Wow.
I remember like buying it like when it first came out. 18 years ago, so one, I was 23.
yeah.
So
Oh,
this like
wow.
bopper, whatever, but I was 23 just out of
Mhm.
college being to Taylor's.
I love it. I
You
love
know,
it.
one thing that I think is so like talking about your girls and your ability to parent for them that you've talked about with us is like, I don't know if you've said this on your podcast or I mean, like, I'm in so many of your things, like, they all kind of combine into one. But something that you said was like, where you reached this breaking point with parenting when you realize like something has to change. And then somatic therapy came out of that. Can you talk a little bit about like when you became like the mean mom in your eyes?
Yeah. So I think, you know, parenting was for me was something that came much later in life. I don't like I did not become I was almost 35 when I became a mom. So my husband and I had been together for a long time by the time we we had been together for 10 years when Maylee came. We met in summer of 2007. We became parents in summer of 2017. So I had been very used to having my own life for a long, long, long time, doing whatever I wanted to, working the hours that I wanted to, sleeping until 2 o'clock on a Saturday, even when I was in my early 30s. You know, Christopher and I used to like, we're concert people. When we lived in San Antonio, we would buy tickets to go to, we bought tickets once for Billy Joel, like 2 hours before it started, and like went and watched. And it was like, we were big, like, we had a social life, we had a lot of things. And I think for me, I studied attachment theory in college. My degree is in human sciences. And I did my senior thesis. I did independent study my last 2 semesters in college under a woman that I now have connected the dots, was actually working with Dr. Peter Levine. She was one of the early people that was working on in the field of somatics, which is kind of how, like, it's kind of weird how this all came together. And I did my senior, not thesis, project on intergenerational family relationships, basically like how behaviors and patterns weave through families. And I spent the first part of my career really thinking that, like, my degree meant nothing to me, that I didn't use it, I didn't have anything. And we had to start doing some adoption training when we got Maylee, not near enough, but we had to do some training. And that was when I first started to realize, okay, I already understand these things about attachment. Like, we had to read, they give you like 5 books, and they're like, you have to read these. One of them is a book called The Connected Child by Dr. Karen Purvis. She's since passed away. And it talks a lot about, like, attachment and like what like secure attachment is, severed attachment. You're getting kids that basically have had attachment issues, because any child that is adopted, whether they're adopted at birth, being separated from your birth mother is an attachment break. Like, there's no 2 ways around it, right? And so I went into adopting Maylee feeling pretty prepared. I was somebody that always had done hard things. And, we get her, and within the first 24 hours, I knew something was very, I don't want to use the word wrong, because there's nothing wrong with her, but I just knew this is going to be very different, because I knew enough to know, because I originally wanted to be a speech pathologist. That was what I wanted to do after college. I worked in a clinic with kids for a year after graduation. And um, I knew enough to know, I was like, this kid has autism. And that was not anything. My husband and I, when we adopted the girls, this sounds kind of weird, but like, they have you fill out all of these forms of like, what kinds of special needs are you willing to do? And all of ours were physical. We were like, no arm deformities, no foot deformities, no, like, everything for us was like very aesthetic. And I was like, I just, and we said we weren't open to a Down syndrome adoption, like those kinds of things. And, we get Mei Lee, and we were told that she had hearing loss and that she was developmentally delayed. And we get her, and I'm like handed a 3.5-year-old that weighs 19 pounds, that is in 12-month clothing, that has it's hard to even describe like what she was. Like, she could walk, but like, she was so dysregulated. She wasn't all there.
Mhm.
And it was like, it, we use this kind of a weird thing to say, like, we just rescued puppies out of a dumpster a few weeks ago. And those puppies were like really feral. It's like Maylee was kind of like a feral human. Like, she didn't human the way most people human, because she'd not lived in a place where the basic norms of being a human were taught. Like, she
Mhm.
didn't know how to be bathed. She didn't she didn't know it, she didn't know how to drink out of a straw. Like, she didn't know, there were very, like, they're huge deficits. And alarm bells were going off in my body like crazy. Um, but I loved her so much. When we got home, we started going to doctor's appointments, and like within 4 weeks, the words autism were muttered to me. I kind of just started like this slow raveling, like losing my mind. Like, all my autoimmune issues flared. I ran a half marathon, and it was the first race I almost didn't finish. Like, I had been an endurance athlete for a decade. It was the first race I almost didn't finish. And I handled it okay with Mei Lee. there was no point in being a mean mom with Mei Lee, if this makes sense, because I was acutely aware that like she didn't cognitively understand anything. So it's like I was like just a boiling pot of resentment. And so I was drinking. But Mei Lee was such this little like happy, most of the time little creature that like I was able to kind of get along for the first couple of years that we adopted Mei Lee. I wasn't happy. I struggled. You know, I was trying to build my business. My husband was traveling all the time. I was alone with her in a town where we knew nobody. We moved. But I was surviving. We went through 2 failed adoptions. And then when we finally adopted Leanna, the first night we got Leanna, I remember being in China and going, I had learned my lesson after one 17-day China trip that you like try to set yourself up as best as you can because it's not a vacation. Like, yes, you're in a place you've never been before and you're in a foreign country, but like, it's not a vacation. It's like the happiest, saddest, most stressful trip you can ever imagine. And we were in this like high-rise apartment that I had rented. And I remember taking Mei Lee into a bathroom on the other side of the apartment. And we were showering. And I was like standing in the shower with her and I was just clinging to her and I was crying because I had this like really real realization that like I had now brought home another child that was actually going to challenge me in the way that most kids challenge. Because Mei Lee is parenting Mei Lee, I always say she's the easiest, hardest kid on the planet. Like we have to parent her in such, it's so hard because she doesn't speak. And if she would just learn to tell me when she needs to poop, my whole life would be changed. But like she's so go with the flow. Like it's like living with like a baby gorilla. Like she doesn't have any manners. She doesn't care about anything but herself. She's a total narcissist, but she's like the cutest little being. She goes to school and everybody loves her. We had lunch with her yesterday and we did lunch in the book fair yesterday. And when we're walking down the hall with her, all of the kids are saying hello to her. Everybody knows her name. She's like the queen bee. But she has a great life. Everybody caters to her. Everybody has everything, but she's very easy. You can take her to the grocery store and hype it up, and you would think she's at Disney World. She's like jumping around, having the best life. So there's not the drama of parenting is not the same with Mei Lee. Like, yes, she cries and yes, she has, but like it's very simple. Like having Mei Lee alone, it was stressful, but we lived a very simple life. Leanna is very complex. And when we adopted her, there was this feeling I was like, I am going to face all of the things that I don't like about myself and all of the things that I experienced growing up, good and bad. I had a good upbringing, but I'm going to re-experience all of those things through parenting this child. And it was actually really jarring. Um, she's my dad used to say, like, I remember my dad took Leanna to school maybe 8 months after we had adopted her. And he came home and he was like, how you adopted Chinese yourself. And she's very similar to me, like very similar. She's hard, she's a high achiever, she's hard on herself, but she has this extra layer of she's trapped in a body that doesn't work. So there's a lot of like angst. And so there was this real struggle the first few months that like acclimating to parenting a child that actually was cognitively there. And then the pandemic happened. And I was expected all of a sudden to be Leanna's kindergarten teacher, her physical therapist, her like all of the things. And I realized that I was like, if I don't teach her to read, we're gonna have like an 8 or 9 year old kindergartner by the time this is all over. Um, and so I like put on this backpack of responsibility in 2020 of like doing all of the things for her. And I coped by drinking. It was just really like it was, I drank a lot. Um, and I was like, it started this cycle of like, I, I would get through the day, and by the end of the day, I was running my business. My first multi six-figure year was in 2020. I was working for another company as well. I had 60 some odd clients. They had 50 some odd coaches that I was coaching. And I had Leanna and Maylee home full time during the pandemic. And I was teaching her to read. And she still didn't fully speak English all at the same time. And I was just drinking. And I was I would have these moments where I would just completely melt down at like 5 o'clock, and I would just be yelling and I would be over it. And I found myself in this pattern regularly. And it was like an out of body experience. Like I couldn't explain it. And the shame afterwards, I would feel so bad. And we're isolated from people who are in the pandemic. I have nobody to talk to. I didn't have very many friends that had kids, and definitely not kids like I had. And so I like I just was in it was like 2 or 3 months of like consistent, just really not doing well. Um and there was a moment, it was April 8th of 2020, where I had a big meltdown. I don't even remember, like I don't remember what I was cooking. I don't even remember what happened that day, but it was big enough to where like I snapped a photo, and I've posted that photo numerous times. And I sent that photo to a really good friend of mine who is a mom. She raised 3 kids, homeschooled them. She's in her late 50s. And I told her, I was like, this is it. Like I actually like I don't think I can't live like this anymore. And I kind of went searching for answers. And the answers that I found was like, okay, like you already know this stuff. Because somatics is just the language of the, like, people get confused about what somatics is. Like, somatics is just the language of your nervous system. So, in order to understand what somatics is, you have to understand the nervous system. Like, anybody that there's a lot of people, I think they're like, oh, well, I somatics, I dance or whatever. Like, that you are moving somatically if you're doing like that, like tribal dancing. But like, somatics is just the language of your nervous system, it's just the language that it speaks. And so
Mm.
I started learning about the nervous system, which I had already learned about when we were adopting Leanna. It just didn't stick. And I had
Mm.
already learned about it in college. It wasn't integrated. Um, and I signed up for like one of those like things on the internet, like you Google and they're like, take this quiz and do this. And I signed up for something, and it kind of taught me the basics. And I went down the rabbit hole of like Googling like the nervous system on YouTube and coming across videos and watching those. And then by the end of 2020, I had enrolled with a coach that was teaching about coaching with a perspective of the nervous system. Um, and that's where I was introduced to my mentor, Will. And then I was like hunting him, and it just kind of happened. Like after that, I just really it what I started learning, and the still to this day, the more I learn about the nervous system, the more I learn about trauma, the more I realize how much I make sense, but then I understand how much other people make sense. I truly believe like you cannot coach well if you don't understand your own nervous system response. Like you can only coach to the extent that you understand yourselves. People always want to ask me like, how do you coach? Like, how do you get clients that stay with you for like 15 million years? Like, how do you, because when you know yourself, you learn to know people. Like Maddie, you ask me questions out there like, why am I doing this? And I'm like, because you're this. And you're like, because I
Yep.
know you at this
Yep.
point, I know your nervous system well enough to be able to call forward the patterns that I'm seeing that we actually have to move forward from. And that's
Mhm.
what like true coaching is. So this, when I started learning about this, I realized how much this actually factors into what I do for a living. And so it
Mhm.
not only changed like my parenting journey and like my personal life, but it changed the way I do my job. It changed the way I relate to my family. It changed the way I related to my employees. It changed the way I relate to my husband. It changed the way I relate to the lady checking me out at the grocery store. Like it's changed me relationally on so many levels.
You know,
I
it's
100%.
thing.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. Well, I was saying the same thing to Maddie when we were recording before you came in, that she has changed so drastically from probably, it's been over a year, so maybe I don't know, 13, 14 months maybe, would you say? Um
Yeah.
and I can just see her functioning in her life so much differently, and I was just like, it's incredible to watch, and it just like speaks volumes to like just the work that she has been doing for herself and the work that you guys do, because like genuinely, like I remember, I don't know, we were recording one episode and I was like, this bitch's energy is way the fuck off. And like after we finished the episode, we talked for like a half hour, 45 minutes. And she was just kind of like, you remember what we were talking about. And it was like a big thing. And then after we got off Zoom, she was like, I just needed that. Like, I needed this type of friendship. And I was like crying. And it just was like, that was a huge moment for you, and just like seeing how you now know yourself more. It's like it's really incredible to watch.
I think for you, like, Maddie, just knowing, like, having worked with you for a long time, we started working privately together in summer of 2022. But I actually don't think it was until we met in fall of 2023. It was the retreat. Shameless plug for
Mhm.
my retreats. Because
Uh,
then I can actually get my little hands on you. I can actually, at a retreat, I can actually get my fingers into the crevices of what's going on,
Literally.
literally and physically and metaphorically and emotionally. I can literally sink my hands into it. But like that was a big moment. And I've actually seen that the biggest shifts that I see people in coaches in my business have are after coming to a retreat. It's either a shift of they move towards the thing that they want, or they recognize I'm going to move away. I've seen both. And you've probably experienced, even though, because you've come to 3 now, or you're about to come to your
Mhm. Mhm.
you've probably seen that. You've seen some alchemize towards the thing that they
Mhm.
want, and then you've seen the movement away at the same
Mhm.
time. And that's what I sometimes I say, and this is kind of this is probably not the direction you guys thought this was going to go, but I think when it comes to like business, sometimes I am have the benefit and the curse of sometimes I am the moment where people realize like this is not for me,
Hmm.
or this is
Mhm.
not something, or this is going to require me to do work that I'm just really not willing to do to keep forward. And so I've been people's last stop. I've been people's nail in the coffin. And I've actually had to rectify that with myself, that like I am the person that actually confronts people with the thing and the work that they have to do. And some of them are going to move towards, and some of them they're going to move away because they either realize this is not for me, or this is going to require work that I'm not willing or able or open to doing.
Mm.
How do you deal with that for, let's say, like a lot of our listeners, right? They don't have businesses, but maybe they're on their own personal development journey. And let's say they have a relationship where they've been growing a lot and their partner hasn't. Like, what do you do to like deal with that? I don't know if it's shame or how you kind of like digest that.
Well, I think the thing to understand with like any human is not fully healed. Like I have shit that still needs to be worked through mega. Like I'm coming off of like the last 2 weeks where I've had a really difficult time in like certain areas. Like I haven't been on social media in a week. I'm like giving myself a decompression. Um, and you know, in any kind of relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship, a work relationship, a friendship, we're all unhealed versions of ourselves carrying baggage from the time we were in the womb.
Mm.
And for me, the biggest thing that keeps me moving forward in relationships is like there's an acceptance piece to it. It's like I know that I don't have the ability to change someone. I
Mhm.
think a younger me, a younger coach wanted to change people. I wanted to fix people. Let me fix this. And there's a lot of
Mhm.
coaches that are like, they're wearing themselves out and they're burnt out and they're overwhelmed because they're trying to fix people. There's a lot of women in this
Mhm.
world that they're worn out because they're trying to they go in and they're fixing things. They're fixers.
Mhm.
They're like
Mhm.
Olivia Poping through their life.
Yeah.
Yep, my mom, everything I bring, like, oh, no, this happened. Oh, well, we could try this. I'm like, no,
Yes,
you don't
they
even
there's
have to do
everything
that.
needs a solution. And when you are
Uh-huh.
somebody that is constantly trying to provide the solutions and then do the solution for people, you are going to be burnout. And
Mhm.
so what I've realized the longer I've done this, when I look at my life and I look at all of the relationships in my life, I'm very keenly aware that I cannot fix or provide a solution for anyone. I can provide guidance, I can provide counsel, I can provide perspective, but it's not my job to integrate that for anyone. So in all of
Mhm.
my relationships, there's a level of this is something that I have to decide that I'm willing to accept about this person and accept that
Mhm.
this may never change. And I have to be regulated and okay with that. Or I have to decide this is actually not congruent with me and move forward. And I've had to make a lot of those decisions. Like there have been in doing the work that I've done, it has changed the chemistry of the way I interact with lots of people in my life.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that's and to the detriment of like I used to be very I wanted to be needed and I've
Mm.
had to be okay with the chemistry within my relationships now allows me to not be needed that same way. I'm not useful to some people because I'm not trying to fix them and I've had to accept that.
Mm.
Yeah. I see that a lot in that's like something I have and will continue to actively work on. And it's it is challenging to, like you said, move into that place where you feel like you're not needed because for so long you have been the person that people come to for the solutions, but you recognize, holy fuck, this is draining. Like I am turning in to a monster and I'm now dodging your calls because I am completely just like overwhelmed. And then to step into that space of, um, I can provide, maybe advice, but I'm no longer sitting here and like going to be frustrated when you don't listen to my advice that you're asking me for. That's like a big
Yeah.
alley on the board of what we're working with.
Well, and and I went to a mastermind retreat in 2021 that actually was like it was a very traumatic experience. It was not a good experience.
Oh
But
God.
the first day of this um experience, the question was asked, what is your role? Meaning like what is your role in this world? And I immediately wrote down to mother. And I
Mm,
was like, I've always felt like my role was to mother. Flash forward a year later, I'm sitting in a bathtub watching a masterclass by a well-known coach. And she said, many of you guys are so hung up on mothering. You think you're being a mother and that you think that it's feminine to be a mother. And it is mother to be a mother is the most feminine thing you can do. She's like, but mothering is masculine. And I realized in that moment how much of my life I had spent mothering things. And it made
Mhm.
sense because I had you know, when I was about 10 and a half, 11 years old, we had a shift in caregiving inside of my family. And I kind of stepped into that like third parent role. And I took that on very seriously. And I had been mothering things since I was not even hitting puberty.
Mm-hmm.
And so that translated into all areas of my life where I inserted myself into situations where I could almost like puppeteer. And then I was resentful when those relationships needed me as much as they did. But I was doing it not because I wanted to do it. I was doing it because it brought me external validation. So the
Mm-hmm.
intrinsic
Mm-hmm.
motivation behind my mothering or helping was selfish. And so there were many relationships in my life where like I had gone what people would look at on paper above and beyond in these relationships. And then they would actually disintegrate because they'd be like, you're so selfish. And I'm like, how are you calling me selfish? I like got you. This is like, I got you out of a crack house with your child and flew you home to safety. And now you're calling me selfish. But I did that because selfishly, I wanted to be needed. I wanted to be able to have that, like, I did this for you mentality. It wasn't clean energy. It was, I'm doing this because I need to receive the validation and I need to receive the control over these situations. So it was selfish. And when I realized that about myself, one, I had to accept that about myself. Like the first step was accepting, okay, like I am that. And can I sit with that and actually be okay with there's a part of me that is that? Without shame, without judgment, can I actually be okay with being controlling? Can I actually be okay with being selfish? Can I actually be okay with being that type of person? Can I own that about myself instead of trying to fix it or change it? And then you get to ask yourself like how like do you want to show up in relationships this way? And the
Mm.
answer for me was I didn't want to show up that way in the majority of my and this is I'm not even remotely clean in this. Like this is still something I struggle with. But like I decided in the majority of the relationships in my life I didn't want to be that. And so there was a
Mm.
disconnection, like a cord cutting if you will, of I'm not willing to actually do that in that relationship anymore. And these relationships with my family, with past friends, with I was like I'm not willing to do that anymore. And the result is those relationships have changed. And you have to again comes in acceptance. You have to be okay. Okay, I made this decision that living this way and behaving this way felt really terrible to me. And so I'm going to change it. I'm going to accept this about myself. But I also have to accept that they're going to view the relationship as less. And so being okay with being viewed as less, which also leads to being called selfish. Like, oh, now Lacy won't do anything. She doesn't do that anymore. Oh no, she's gonna tell you that she has a boundary. Oh, it's like so it's the damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah.
And you
Mm-hmm.
actually have to be okay enough with yourself to be like, I'm cool with them labeling me that either way.
Right.
Because how they label me is a reflection of them. It matters how I label me, and I feel more at peace showing up with this, and I recognize their projections for what they are. So I'm just going to live my life. And but there's a whole many people don't get here because they're like, I it you realize you actually when it comes to people and relationships that you've behaved that way in, you usually don't get to win. And especially for like high achieving women, the winning is what they want. The winning is, I want people to like me. The
Hmm.
winning is, I
Yeah.
want people to like me. I want people to say good things about me. I want people to, like, that's winning. And when you actually shift, the acceptance part is like, there's going to be a lot of people that don't like you. And that's actually, I've there's a lot of people that don't like me, and I still wake up every morning and the sky is blue and my body still looks banging and I am happy and my sleep score is good and I am safe to not be liked.
Yeah. There, as you were saying that, I like feel the anxiousness in
I
my
can see it
chest.
in your body. That's what I'm
Yeah, no,
actually
I'm like I gotta like breathe over here because I have people in my life that are very much they like to move the chess pieces, and I feel so stuck in that. So that's also like a thing that I'm working through, but I'm like, God damn, like sometimes you you can try so hard to even like move away from like I'm not going to like I'm going to set that boundary and be not the person that needs like I no longer need to be needed by this person, but they still fucking need me. And I'm just like, that is also like I don't know how to move through that in this moment. And it's just like it's crazy. Yeah, no, I can like I'm like trying to like look at myself and I'm like, stop looking so
well, and here's the thing. If we bring this back around, you actually like when you want to talk about like women being able to sustainably maintain their weight, women being
yeah.
able to sustainably go after their goals, women being able to grow a business, you actually can't check the boxes of all the things you want to do if you're carrying those things. Like
Yeah.
that is the energetics of what I call it. It's like you're closed for business.
Mm,
Because when you spend your whole life needing that external validation, then then nothing is intrinsically coming from you. This is even something like I'll say like this week. Um I've been on I haven't posted on social media like stories or anything since Sunday. It's Friday. I actually don't know when I'm going to be back. Like I think I'm probably going to come back on Monday, but I don't know. I'm just kind of waiting and seeing. But like I haven't posted everything that's gone up has been like pre-scheduled or whatever. And I haven't been scrolling very much. And I realized I'm like, I'm not scrolling very much because I used to, when I'm posting a lot, I'm looking to see, okay, like, how is this doing? How is that doing? Or like kind of looking at different things. And this week has really been an exercise, and I need this every so often to go like, who am I and how do I feel when I'm not looking for external validation via social media? Like, who am I when I'm not looking for, I haven't even sent an email, I've not done a podcast. Like, who am I when I'm not getting external validation from a payment that's come in
mm,
or from a like on threads or from an email click or an email reply, like who am I when I'm not getting that, and can I actually just sit with that? And what I've noticed about myself this week, and I've done this before because I took 53 days off of social media last year, and I actually have a little sheet where I mark off every day that I like don't show up on social media. I will have been off of social media for a total of 50 some odd days this year. Like I take regular breaks. This is my first extended break in over a year. And what I've really appreciated about this specific break is I've recognized how tired I was. When you
mm,
talk about somatics, a lot of times we're disconnected from our body. Like our body is somatically talking to us, but we are mentally ignoring it because we are in the rat race of what can I look at on social media? Who can I talk to? Who can I help? We can't be bored. Like we
mm,
don't have the ability to be bored. And so we're somatically disconnected because we're all up here, anxiety spiraling, doom spiraling, creating all sorts of like scenarios in our brain. We're all up here. Meanwhile, this is doing something, but we're not connected to it.
mm,
And so as I've disconnected from that the last like 5 or 6 days, what I noticed was I'm really tired. And so numerous times this week by 4 o'clock, I've been on the couch with a blanket, like taking a nap. Like I'll take an hour nap and then I finish up with work with my clients. I got up and got Maylee. I was in bed by 9:30 last night. I had a margarita last night. It was so good. I hadn't had a drink in a couple weeks. I had a margarita last night at the Mexican food restaurant and came home, got the girls in bed, took a bath, was in bed by 9:30, was asleep by 10, woke up, got Maylee dressed and ready for school, went back to bed until 9:20. And I'm like, yesterday afternoon, I laid on the floor in my closet and like I was doing somatic experiencing on myself, which I do as somebody that's trained like a lot of I do work on my clients, but I do a lot of work on myself. So I literally was in the middle of my floor for like over an hour yesterday, just tracking, which I don't normally have that much space for because I'm so busy on my phone posting content. But even if I only show up once, like I'm there's like all of these things. So I realized this last week, and I even realized just a few moments ago as I'm talking about this, my voice has sped up.
Mhm.
I can feel more anxiety in my shoulders. And so I noticed I was like, I feel really when I allow myself to be bored and understimulated, I'm tired.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times we don't even give ourselves space to realize that we're tired. We don't even give ourselves space to realize that we need space. Like because we're so busy. Um, and and there's for me, doing these things, it connects me to like I weighed this morning and I've lost 3 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
I could tell I was wearing shorts this morning that I hadn't worn in a while. Um, like I can tell how my body is responding. And it just brings in when I have these seasons of like a detox from social media or a detox from doing things socially or a detox from like I haven't been answering text messages from people this week very much.
Mm.
Like I'm there's text messages from people in my life that I've not gone back and forth with. I've just ignored that because it's not just social media, it's like detoxing from like the things that stimulate. Um
Mhm.
and you just start to notice like all of the things about your body that you've been ignoring. And after these moments, I'm always able to come back into my business or come back into like I work out with a personal trainer twice a week. I hit PRs. I had 11 PRs on my workout yesterday. He was like, "Get mad and get off of social media more often, Landry." Like, yeah, like I maxed out my dips, I maxed out like everything. I had so much energy in the tank for my workout.
Mhm.
And it, it's because like I had energy for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I often usually believe that once I do this, my business typically I have some sort of like big money increase that happens because I give myself that space.
Mm.
Um, the caveat I think is like even when I'm in my business, I'm like constantly like I'm aware of my regulatory state. So I think like what some people would view as like what I've done this week as like the nervous system state of shutdown, like, oh, Lacy shut down, like she's tired, she's sleeping all the time. No, I'm not shut down. I'm like, this is a very intentional process that I'm doing because I think a lot of coaches and a lot of women, they live in shutdown.
Mm.
It's not intentional, it's
Mhm.
autopilot based. So it's not intentional. What I'm doing is very intentional because I'm always connected to my body. I knew Sunday into Monday, I was like, I'm not going to be able to do near as much this week. So I'm just going to intentionally move away.
Mm.
Um, and that's what I have control over my nervous system. I am working with it all the time. So these seasons where I do this, um, usually lead to a season of like massive growth. I actually was DMing back and forth with one of my mentors yesterday. I'm not even in an access based container with her, but um, she had a question for me. She came in and she asked me a question. We went back and forth, and she was feeling very much the same. She's like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing this right now too," and it's not a coincidence that the women that are doing things at the highest level, kind of like me, I don't talk about this stuff a lot on social media. In my smaller circles, people know. But it's the same thing with the mentors that I work with that are at, making $1 million a month. They're making $1 million a month because they have this squared away. They're doing what I'm doing. This is the hack. Like it is. For women in general. Like this is the hack.
You talked about that it could look like you were in freeze or shut down. Can you, for people that don't know, I kind of understand this better now, but what does that look like for a common person to be in freeze or shut down?
So if you're somebody that is in freeze all the time, freeze is like deer in a headlight or human sees a bear. You're still, but your mind is racing. So freeze in most people's lives looks like sitting on the couch, trying to focus on watching a movie or trying to whatever, and being in this energy of, I need to do this, but I can't. I need to do this, but I can't. Sitting in front of a computer being like, God, I need to work on this project. I can't. I need to work. I can't. I need to leave that, but I can't. I need it, but I can't. That's freeze. That's the nervous system state. It's like the body is still, the mind is alive, right? And so there's like this push and pull of wanting to and not wanting to, not being able to, that's like tugging. And so there's a lot of energy, and the energy is being reabsorbed into your body, right? Fight or flight, the energy is going out. Freeze, the energy is going into your body. When you're in shutdown, shutdown is actually just like completely disconnected. This is like, I'm laying on the couch and I'm just lifeless. I have no energy. I can't do anything. I don't care. I don't want to make decisions. I couldn't possibly do that. It's like catatonic. I find that more women are in freeze than anything else. It's the I want to, but I can't. The I know I need to work out, but I can't. The I know I need to cook dinner, but I can't. The I know, like, that's where most women live their lives, because during the day they're in fight or flight, constantly solving problems. And then in the evening they're, I want to, but I can't. I want to, but I can't. I want to, but I can't. I want to, but I can't.
Yep.
They're numbing that. Women numb that feeling of I want to, but I can't, with food, with alcohol. Like, it's such a different thing to be like I said, I had a margarita last night. I had a margarita very intentionally. I was like, I'm happy for this margarita. Like, I'm
Yeah.
for this. Like, it was not a like I need to numb something. It was like I'm happy for this margarita. It's a completely different, like, I don't ever drink to numb.
Right.
I
It's a want, not a
It's
need.
a want. It's like I desire to have a drink. This sounds fun. This feels good. I'm being social. This feels like, it's not covering something up. It's like an add to for me. It's a completely different. And if I do drink in a different, that's when my body feels it. Like, I'm rocking a 93 sleep score and I had a margarita last night. That should tell you everything you need to know about my intention, because alcohol is poison, whichever way. But my body actually metabolized it differently because the intention is different. Like,
Right.
completely. I mean, think about all of the people that are living in European countries that drink alcohol all the time and live until they're 100. They're drinking, it's got a different intention. Here in America, we drink to numb. We drink to cover. The intention is toxic on top of the toxicity.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about freeze, it's that battle of like, I know I need to do this, but I can't do this, or I'm not motivated. I and the key to getting out of freeze is actually allowing yourself to move forward slowly, which a lot of women don't allow themselves to do because they live in a very all or nothing world. Like, if you're on the couch and you're like, I said I was going to work out today, but I just can't. I don't have the energy. I said I was going to work out today, but I just can't. If a woman would just say, I'm going to get up and I'm going to do 10 jumping jacks and I'm going to let that be okay for working out, that actually would probably get her, that those 10 jumping jacks would lead to, you know what, I feel like I can go take a walk. Or you know what, I'm going to throw in 5 push-ups. But women don't do that. They're like, oh, I need to get off the couch and work out. I got to go work out for an hour. I got to sweat. I got to put on different clothes. I got to
I
put
got to
on
drive to the
food. I gotta
gym.
drive to the gym. And it's like, no, like you can actually just get up off your couch barefoot wearing your pajamas and do 10 jumping jacks. It's that small movement. Like I only coach one woman for nutrition coaching. I do somatic health coaching. I have one client and she's incredible. I love her. We just signed on for our next 3-month block. And she's lost like 20 some odd pounds with me. She'd had 4 coaches before, never saw any success. We've lost 20 some odd pounds. We've not really dieted. We actually just started calorie cycling. She's done 2 workouts, but we started by, I want to challenge you to walking for 2 minutes after you eat.
Mm-hmm.
I want to, like, when you sit down on the couch, before you sit down on the couch, I want you to walk for 2 minutes. Like, we took teeny tiny itty bitty steps because every other coach she had worked with was like, you need to do 4 workouts a week at the gym. Here's this 45-minute workout split. It's not, her nervous system was not primed to do that. I backed it way down. She's seen way more success.
Mm-hmm.
That's working with, I know how to work with freeze. I know how to work with shutdown because I know how to work with it myself.
I had a very similar experience in like late 2019. I was diagnosed with agoraphobia and I was like housebound for, I think it was like maybe almost 2 months or 6 weeks, whatever. And I was working with a coach at the time, and she did not understand how to understand what I was going through. And I didn't know how to explain it because I was mortified. I was like, what is this type of person that I have now become where I like can't leave my bedroom without having a panic attack, can't go downstairs without having all this sort of stuff.
Phobia is fear and fear is freeze.
Oh, girl, I was as stuck could be. And so I gained 30 pounds and I wasn't even like eating that much. Like it wasn't totally crazy. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm a fucking loser. Like my mental health is shit. My physical health is shit. Like what am I doing? And then I trusted somebody again, and she kind of like you're saying with like kind of like micro dosing fitness. Like we did the like what I, view now as like the smallest shit, but it's what I needed, and it made such
I
a
know who you work
difference.
with, and I actually worked with her for a really long
Yes,
time.
of course. Of course. Kelsey, shout out. And it was just so healing because I was like, it's not like that I can't do something. It's just like I'm not in this space for it. And it was the best thing that like I needed, and it made me a much better coach. And Maddie always talks about the work that she does with you, and I've talked to my therapist about it, and I'm like, when I probably after I plan this damn wedding, we are going to like go into somatics because I know that I can, there is better for myself. I don't have to live in this type of, I would call it like instability, because my nervous system is so, I don't know how you would call it, but like if I get excited, that can like trigger a panic attack.
Yeah, so when we're talking about the nervous system, every single human gets dysregulated multiple times a day.
Yeah.
Like I get dysregulated multiple times a day. It's not about getting regulated or dysregulated. It's not, it's about being flexible and resilient.
Mm.
So it's what, and I like to say, like, this is like a hallmark of, um, like, this is just a concrete like example. A few weeks ago in my business, I woke up in the morning and I have like little notifications that come in when I'm getting paid or like things. And I had a payment dispute. It was the first payment dispute I had had in 2 years. Like that's happened to me like 3 times in all of
Mm.
business. And it was, it was, it actually on paper, it didn't really make sense. I was like, this is, wow, this doesn't make sense. And I remember when that had happened to me 2 or 3 years ago, I mean, my whole body flushed and I went into full fight or flight. And I was like, really, and I was like, oh, like, what is happening? I like caught, and there was like 3 minutes where I was like really upset. And then I was like, you know what? This is fine. Like, this is, it's, there's an explanation for this. And if there's not, whatever, this is fine.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually just moved on with my day. And so like it's not the fact that like, getting a phone call, like, I mean, if my phone rang right now, it was my brother, my whole body would start to seize up. I'd be like, oh my God, who died? What happened? Whatever. It's not that I don't feel that anymore. It's just if I feel that, I'm actually able to resolve it really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
If I get upset in traffic, it doesn't ruin the rest of my day. I'm actually able to resolve it. If I have an uncomfortable encounter with a teacher of my kids or an uncomfortable email or uncomfortable conversation, I'm actually able to resolve it. I don't live in the anxiety for days and days and days and days. So things that used to take me months to resolve now might take me minutes.
Mm.
And so it's not about when you're working with your nervous system, it is not, and when you're working somatically, and this is why it unlocks, for me, it's why it unlocked everything that I have good in my life. That's why I'm always like, oh, don't wait to do this work because your life is on the other side of it. Like, because it's like when you spend so much time with the feelings of dysregulation, when you spend so much time, you actually can't receive the things that you want and you desire. Like it's just blocking you because you're over here doing this. But when you learn to work with your system and you can resolve those things quicker, you actually get into the receiving mode. This is the woo-woo side of it that a lot of like very masculine females don't. But I can literally watch people on social media. I can watch people in conversations and um I can pick up on things that I'm like, I bet things are not good right now. Like and I've actually had people in conversations like say, stop tracking me.
Ah!
And I'm like, I actually like I can't. I'm sorry. I can't because it when you know how to read your nervous system and you can feel what you feel, you're actually able to feel somatically what others are feeling.
Mm.
And when you're all bound up, if you can't even feel yourself, there's no way you're going to be able to feel other people.
Right.
You're all bound up. There's no way you're going to be able to receive other people and they're going to receive you with a clean, like clean line of energy receiving. I can see there's been no explanation. There's been a handful of times, the most like prominent one. Um, I did a plant medicine ceremony in 2022, about 3 weeks after my dad passed away. And I had been prepping and integrating for this experience for months. And I was afraid that I wasn't going to do it. And it was probably one of the most healing events that I've ever done. Because I got everything that I needed. I had a really great experience. I know that that's not always the case, but I was very open after that. It was the first time I truly felt like what my body could experience when it was just fully regulated,
Mm.
like fully regulated. Um, and I came home and there was like a 5-day period where like, I don't want to say I was in a trance, but I was just very even.
Mm.
And anything that would dysregulate, I would be able to go back in. I was just came out with a very big connectedness. And I had like a $70,000 week.
Jeez.
I made $70,000 in like 4 days. It's like everything I said turned to money.
Mm.
And that's happened to me a couple of times when like I did a call in early 2023, right before I took a nosedive of like really struggling post my dad's death, but I did a call with somebody and that like there was like a light bulb went off, and I went on social media to talk about it, and I had 3 people all of a sudden tell me, "Hey, I want to work with you. How much does it cost?" Like,
Mm.
and there's like this when you're open, you can receive. And
Mhm.
openness is contingent on you being able to have a nervous system that's resilient. The quicker you resolve things, the better. One of my clients, we call it getting back to vanilla.
Mm.
Sooner I can get back to vanilla Lacy, like I'm very vanilla right now. I, I'm having like a 15, $20,000, I don't even know because I'm but like 15, $20,000 week. I haven't even been on social media, but I'm very vanilla. And so all of my receiving is like fully open.
Mm.
And when you want to talk about business, like if you're just a woman, you're like listening to this and you're like, oh, but I have a job. Like this can look like there's like random money that falls into your lap, or there's like a random opportunity that falls into your lap. Like it doesn't have to be open for this.
Right.
I fully, I literally went on Sunday from there are no Taylor Swift tickets that are ADA under $12,000 to like, here's these tickets that are $1,053 in a really good spot that you can buy. Oh, and here's a hotel that's a quarter mile and there's a handicap accessible room.
Mm-hmm.
It's like and those, oh, and the Disney cruise that you want to take your girls on. Here you can go on it. Oh, and you happen to sign up on the day. Here's a $1,500 onboard credit for you to use for eating and shopping.
Slay.
Oh, and here's your bookkeeper telling you you actually need to put this on your business because this is going to be your business's annual meeting. So is this. Oh, and here, like, there's been all of these like little things that have like percolated and like come out. And
Yeah.
because my energy is open.
Yeah.
It's why
Mhm.
it's very hard to get high achievers, and I work with a lot of high achievers to release control enough to like, because it's all about control. You think that doing is control. You think that managing is control. It's actually, it is, but it's a different type of controlling. You're
Right.
managing the external. Most high achievers are so busy managing the external, the how people view them, the how people see them, the what they're doing, the productivity, the way people view them, their productivity. They're managing the external. When everything you're managing is external, you're going to constantly be tired. The true work is managing your internal. Like
Mm.
how
Mhm.
how am I in this moment? Like what how can like the management of the internal is actually going to you'll receive more externally.
Mm. Mm.
I think that's probably, and we've talked about this like one on one, like my biggest thing that I continue to struggle with is being okay being misunderstood. And no matter what, like I feel like I'm crawling my way to fully accepting that. But I think having several different platforms, having our podcast, we're bound to have someone misunderstand us at some point. And even though we're in a long form situation now talking, but it's bound to happen. But that is probably the biggest thing I still have yet to really like fully grasp and embody. But I wouldn't have known that until I got into this work.
Yeah.
Mm.
So if you're not being misunderstood, you actually don't stand for anything.
Yeah.
Because like so if your constant search in life is to be understood by everyone, you actually don't stand for anything. Like you have no intrinsic central value system if you're constantly trying to be understood. Because
Mm.
all you're doing is vacillating between making sure that other people understand
Mhm.
you. So you're not actually standing firm. So you're like Gumby, you're like wiggly. That's like the
Yeah.
kind of resilience you don't. That's like it's not resilience. That's the kind of flexibility you don't want. This summer, I had a post go viral on Instagram in 2020. It was stolen from my page. I had 15,000 people tell me that I was a terrible mother. I was recognized in public inside of 24 hours. That was my first inkling of like, I don't know that I want to be famous ever. I've been recognized at Disney World before, and I'm not even a big, like, I don't even have a big following, but I had somebody find me at Disney World once, and I was like, oh, this feels really uncomfortable. I didn't like it. But the act of like being recognized and the act of being told all of that, that was kind of like I could not stop that because it wasn't on my page. I couldn't delete it.
Ah, yeah.
So it was out of my control. The only thing I could control was how I received it and how much I looked at it.
Mm-hmm.
But this summer and I knew it was going to happen. I was at Disney World and I posted a reel. And as I was typing it up, I was like, this is going to go mega viral. And it has, and it still continues to. I posted it July 4th. It's still this week. I just turned comments off this week because it was junking up my page. I was like, I'm just tired of these comments. And it wasn't from I didn't want to read them. It was like this actually feels cluttered now. Like this is visual clutter for my page. But the post is still up. What I realized this summer when there were hundreds of comments coming in calling me ableist, saying that I was bad for the special needs community, that my girls should be taken away. They called me a white savior. They told me like all of these things. What I realized was when I put my phone down, it didn't exist.
Right.
I was living my life. I was going to Disney World. I was experiencing my girls, eating food, living, sleeping, and it didn't exist unless I picked up my phone. All of those comments, they lived in a very small microcosm of a space that I can choose to not go into. When I realized nobody's pounding on my door telling me that they're going to take away my girls. Nobody is taking money out of my business. Nobody is like, there's actually no danger here. User 1234567R2 has no bearing on my life. They're just a blank page on Instagram spouting something. There's no harm coming to me. I am safe to have these comments inhibit this boxed computer that I walk around with.
Mm.
And I didn't grow up with one of these because I'm way older than you guys. We didn't have this shit when I was growing up. Thank God.
Honestly.
I did like
Yeah.
we did not have
Yeah.
this shit.
Yeah.
So like I was like in my late 20s when I got my first one of these. My prefrontal cortex was fully formed by the time I got one of these. Walk around here.
Unfortunately, we cannot say the same.
No, so like, but I just realized it was like this, whatever happens in that box,
Yeah.
my life is still happening. Nobody's on my doorstep picketing. There's no paparazzi outside. Like there is no threat to my safety. I just get to turn it off. And in that moment, I was like, it doesn't, it might bother me for a second. Again, I can read those comments and be like, oh.
Yeah.
And then I can choose to block it or I can choose to be like, oh, okay. And it's going back into that resilience. Because it actually, when you realize those people that you don't even know's opinion and they're not understanding you has no bearing on your life in the real actual world and not
Yeah.
even in the virtual world. None of the people that I interact with that have bought from me cared about that message. In fact, many of my clients came to my defense. I actually have a client who he was sticking up for me and people came into his DMs for sticking up for me. I didn't tell him to do that. He just did that for me.
Right.
But like it didn't have any bearing. So like there's no lack of safety. Like some rando 21-year-old that has a skewed worldview thinking that I'm a bad mother does not mean anything about me. So they can say whatever they want. Like the pitchforks are not actually coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When I realized that, I'm like, okay, fine. Let whatever happen happen.
Yeah. I don't want to take up too much of your time here so we can wrap up soon, but I try and it sounds kind of silly, but like when I'm in the middle of a panic attack, I try and like make myself feel like it's like literally not that serious. Like, why are we being so silly and anxious right now? And when I'm able to do that, I can like kind of come back into myself a little bit more. Of course, we have some of those days where it's like we're on the bathroom floor, but progress, right? Like at least, I'm living my life now. And, Maddie, I remember she had said to me, she was like, and that also this is where you were coming in fearing being misunderstood. You're like, I hope like you don't think I'm like pushing you into something, right? Like when I say these things, and I was like, fuck no. Like I feel your intention and it is so loving. And like, even if I did misunderstand that, like you can have these conversations and like some like when we're so afraid of like being misunderstood, it like doesn't allow us to get to these deeper connections and stuff. Like if she doesn't say these things to me, or if I don't say these things to her because I'm like afraid, we
Mhm.
wouldn't be where we are. So yeah, now I'm gonna, might just go and throw my phone away for a minute and just like live in fantasy world.
Literally.
I don't have technology because I love that.
I'm a pilgrim.
I'm a pilgrim. I'm a homestead.
Y'all are way too young, but when I was in elementary school, we played a game called Oregon Trail.
Oh yeah.
Oh, loved that game. Loved
Yeah,
it.
like the DOS computer.
Yes.
Like everybody's dying of dysentery. It's fine.
Literally. Dysentery was all the rage.
I've never known anybody to die of dysentery, but the core
Thank
fear when I
God.
was 9.
Oh my God. I'm gagged.
I'm choking now. Well, this was such a good conversation and went in so many different directions, and both dogs are here ready to go
Oh,
outside.
So I want to, before we go, because y'all are,
Yeah.
I want to bring the pop culture. So I'm all
Yes.
about like creating regulating resources for yourself. And what's funny is like I help people build their regulation toolbox, the things that they go to that calm them down. And that's going to look like different for everyone. My most regulating resource this last week has been, do you guys know what chicken shop date is?
yes.
Yes, of course.
Oh, okay. So
Of
how many
course.
times have you watched Amelia and Andrew?
Like embarrassingly a lot. Like,
Okay, I did not watch it yet. I saw some
Well,
clips.
how can you? Oh,
I'll have to watch it. I'll watch it
I'm
today.
so watching the 11-minute Amelia and Andrew chicken shop date is the most regulating resource for me this week. I've watched it so many times because the chemistry is so palpable. And then just knowing that like they had met on the red carpet like 2 times, like those couple of times. I mean, I've sent it. I'm like, I need to know if you're going to become obsessed with this like I am. Like it's it's like the 2024's best rom-com. It's so good. Like I feel like that should be the final chicken shop date. Like she should just go out after that. Like
yeah,
there's no more chicken shop date.
bang. Like it was everything we didn't know we needed. And oh, so
I
that's
followed.
I knew I needed it. I knew I needed it before it came out. I
I've
knew I
seen
needed it.
montages of them like meeting in public on red carpets,
oh
and I'm
my
like, they
goodness.
have such good chemistry, like in
Like
IRL.
hot under the collar. I'm like, oh, I love
Like one of my friends said yesterday, she's like, if somebody looked at me for 2.3 seconds like that, I would be unalived. I'm like, I know, right? It's like so good. It's like so good. So I actually we went to eat Mexican food last night. I was like, I'm not cooking. I'm not available for cooking. And we eat out one time a week. And I knew that tonight and tomorrow night we're not going to because we're leaving on Sunday. And I we went to go eat Mexican food and I came home and I bathed the girls and I was like, I still need to get my steps in. And I did not want to do it. And I was like, you know what, Lacy? You can get your steps in and you can watch Chicken Shop Date 3 times. Oh my God.
it.
So I watched the Sabrina Carpenter Chicken Shop Date, and then I watched Andrew and Amelia 2 times, and my steps were done. And that's how we got it done yesterday. We watched Chicken Shop Date.
I
Oh, that.
That is me with this podcast is called Just Trish. I have like three that are like my go-to feeling a little anxious. We put on Just Trish. Need steps in,
That's
just
your that's your
and
regulating.
now I love, oh yeah, wow. That's great. So everybody, if you haven't watched it, go watch it. Maddie, that's your homework.
Gonna
And
watch it.
it was that, yeah, I'm
It's
so
so
glad
good.
you brought that up because
So good.
I will watch it today.
Chicken Shop Date forever.
yes, I love that.
Oh,
You
well,
guys.
thank you. Yeah, so much. You are probably the busiest person I know alive. And like, not just like kind of busy, or people are like, I'm busy. And then you're like scrolling TikTok for an hour. Like, you are actually busy. I've seen you work in IRL with your girls, and they're a lot of work.
I know anybody's time somebody actually, Maddie has had the pleasure of coming into my home and actually seeing the actual
Mhm.
balance of what's happening. I think
Uh,
sometimes I always say if people followed me around with a GoPro, they'd be like, "Oh man,
yeah.
how is this possible?"
No,
It's
those are my exact thoughts.
it is possible.
Where can our listeners find you? I know you have a Calm Mom guide I've looked at. Where can they find
Do.
that?
So yeah, so for ladies that are looking just to, if you're like a woman that has a job, and kids and a family, you're not an entrepreneur, my coach Lacy, I have a Calm Mom guide that is the 5 simple steps that you need to be taking as a woman every single day to just feel calmer in your life. And I have a program called 30 Days to Regulate that it's like regulation tools in your pocket. So it's 30 days of simple regulation tools that are less than 10 minutes long, teaches you about your nervous system in a really simple way, in really simple language, and gives you concrete ways to actually feel better inside of your life. Um, if you're a coach that is watching this, my business page is I am Lacy Unleashed.
Well,
Oh, there you go.
That's
They
you.
really want to go out. So I am Lacy Unleashed is where I do all of my business stuff. And yeah, those are my 2 homes.
All right, awesome. We will link everything below so that they can just
mhm.
scroll and see you. And thank you so much for coming. This was really, really awesome.
You're welcome. It's good to be here.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much for listening or watching it, Kinda Hot, Kinda Healthy. Please make sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and share this with a girlfriend who needs to understand and become one with her nervous system. You can you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere where you can stream podcasts. If you have a burning question about life, friendship, health, and 1 or 2 cents, email us at kindahotpod@gmail.com. That's KINDAHOTPOD@gmail.com. Bye.
Bye.